Grassroots cinema from the Paris suburbs, the City of Lights, loses its sparkle for tourists, and Ai Weiwei's latest documentary takes aim at China's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. That's all coming up in today's show. Well, 25 years ago, the film La Haine rocked French cinema to its core, and the shockwaves were felt across society, from artistic circles to the underprivileged suburbs it depicted. One bittersweet phrase from the film's script sums up its dark sense of humour: jusqu'ici, tout va bien, or so far, so good, despite the desperate circumstances it refers to. Well, that catchphrase is now the title of an exhibition here in Paris, which is showing the achievements of a collective that started in the suburbs at that time, Kourtrajmé. It's gone on to incubate the talents of a new generation of filmmakers under the guidance of directors like Lajli, Romain Gavras and photographer JR. Our culture editor Louise Dupont sat down with JR and Mathieu Kassovitz to find out more.
Hello to both of you, Mathieu Kassovitz and JR. What's the inspiration behind this exhibition?
We wanted our students to prepare an end-of-year show. They were pretty excited to do this. This year also happens to be the 25th anniversary of La Haine by Mathieu Kassovitz, a film that inspired us at the Kourtrajmé school. We asked the students to be inspired by the film, as well as Les Misérables by Lajli, who founded this school. Palais de Tokyo offered us this vast space, which at first really intimidated the students, but in the end enabled them to work on larger-scale installations.
The exhibition creates a link between these two films from two different generations. Do you, Mathieu Kassovitz, see similarities, differences? How did you experience things?
The story behind Kourtrajmé, Lajli, JR and La Haine dates back 25 years. The Kourtrajmé collective was founded by Kim Chapiron, Romain Gavras,
And Toumani.
and Toumani, yes. For me, they completely changed the image of the suburbs. They inspired a new generation of kids to use this hate in a creative and constructive way. At first, they made short films, and over time, they moved on to feature films. We passed the baton to one another. So it's a way to pay homage to our generation and the following ones, as well as taking on the issues covered in the film. That is to say, the neighbourhood and how it's evolved, and how these young people live today. There's a lot of talent and a lot of young artists who are trying out different things, such as this young lady who has recreated the bedroom of Vince's sister in La Haine by imagining how she would have dealt with his death a few years later. Women are not at all represented in the film, as well as in the suburbs in general. So I'm greatly inspired by this, and it makes me want to make another film.
Well, we wanted to find out more about these young artists on show here. We chatted with them just before the opening.
Quelques minutes avant le vernissage.
The mantra at Kourtrajmé is no time, no money, but you have to smash it. So there was no time, no money, but we had to nail it. So it took me 3.5 months of intensive work. I must have lost a few years of my life. I'm 33 years old, but I must look 55.
What's great is that Andrea takes the arts and image classes, and I take the screenwriting and cinema classes. What's cool is that we are able to collaborate with each other and work on diverse projects. Palais de Tokyo has opened doors for us, and the school is pushing us to surpass ourselves.
We heard there that these young people have learned a lot by working with you guys. What have you, JR, learned from them?
Seeing the world through their eyes. It's fascinating when you yourself are trying to evolve. It's not like I'm at the end of my career and trying to create a school. I'm trying to grow and reinvent myself constantly. It's something I actually learned from Agnès Varda. She was always in contact with different generations, different perspectives, up until her death. She didn't want to miss out on Instagram, for example. She would have totally been on TikTok if she were still alive.
La Haine came out 25 years ago. The suburbs were burnt down after police violence. In Les Misérables, it seems to show that not much has changed. These young people, showcasing here today, still seem to have a certain amount of hate, as you would say. Would you say that not much has changed?
Rien n'a changé. Comment est-ce que vous analysez ce phénomène-là?
Le monde a changé.
The world has changed. What's not changed are the injustices. Those will never change as all societies need extremes. There will always be extremely rich and privileged people, and there will always be extremely poor and invisible people. What shocks me the most when it comes to the difference between now and when I shot La Haine is that there is still no awareness on the part of politicians. Today, everything is filmed. How can they not just look at the images and say, let's see that justice is done? Because the police being the police is not a problem, but politicians not taking responsibility is what drives me crazy.
We've talked a lot about this famous Kourtrajmé school, but just to remind everyone, it was created by Ladjli, the director of Les Misérables in Montfermeil. What are the basic principles behind the school?
The principles are how to create with little means, but also how to survive as an artist. In my classes, I don't teach them how to paint better, how to better take a photo, make a sculpture, but how to survive as an artist, all the tricks of the trade so that they don't make the same mistakes I made, but also to keep them constantly surrounded by creative energy, having them work with different artists and filmmakers, plunging them into different environments to open their eyes. Real diversity is not just accepting students from the suburbs, but also from affluent neighborhoods such as Neuilly. That is the real diversity when there's this meeting between the two worlds.
25 years ago in Montfermeil, it was the type of housing project where you told yourself there would never be hope, nothing at all. Flowers will never grow up from the concrete. It was the most violent image of a ghetto. And to imagine that nowadays all these young people have managed to succeed and to be creative, well, that's a pure joy to witness.
La Haine came out 25 years ago and has been re-released in cinemas in HD.
No, I went to have a little look at the energy in the cinemas, but I can't bring myself to watch the film. It annoys me too much.
Why?
I don't like it, I don't know. You like your work?
Do you see all your mistakes?
Do you like your work?
I don't watch my films either.
Well, there you go.
And you, JR, did you watch it?
When I watched La Haine again, I felt like it had gotten better with age. It's timeless.
Don't get me wrong, it's a great film.
L'important, c'est pas la chute. C'est l'atterrissage.
Well, here in France, the dramatic drop in the number of foreign visitors this summer has been disastrous for the country's tour guides. Many of them have found themselves with no income for the past few months, and it could last even longer. Wasim Cornet tells us more.
Paris on a sunny August morning.
On va monter la colline de la butte aux Cailles et aujourd'hui je vais vous parler de l'histoire de cette colline, mais également je vais vous parler de street art.
Chloé Mercion has been a tour guide in Paris for 9 years.
Le soir aussi ça donne des effets vraiment sympas du coup.
These free tours organized by City Hall are an opportunity for her to continue doing what she loves.
J'ai beaucoup trop d'énergie. J'ai fait que 8 visites cet été, normalement je travaille 7 jours sur 7.
Chloé is one of the more than 4,000 tour guides who have seen their jobs drastically cut down because of COVID-19. Before coronavirus, she would spend every day in packed Parisian museums. Today, though, tourists have deserted the French capital. Tour guides have held demonstrations all summer long to try to warn authorities of the impending disaster for their sector.
Cette crise est sans précédent et je ne pensais pas qu'en fait, en quelques mois sans activité, on pourrait basculer autant dans la précarité. Moi, j'ai des collègues qui demandent des tickets restaurants, juste des bons alimentaires, qui demandent le RSA parce qu'elles se retrouvent sans aucun revenu.
Despite an 18 billion euro investment in the tourism sector, 41% of tour guides will not receive any financial aid whatsoever because of a number of different job titles and statuses that exist. Guides in the eastern city of Strasbourg have resorted to finding potential customers directly out on the street. Foreign tourists are rare here as well.
On est censé avoir des clients italiens, mais il n'y a rien du tout. Et surtout, l'anglais, là, tout est bloqué. Donc, on travaille beaucoup avec des Américains et il n'y a pas d'Américains actuellement.
And the absence of cruise boats and their passengers has only made matters worse.
Je travaille quasiment qu'avec des croisiéristes. La semaine dernière, on a reçu le mail comme quoi tout était annulé jusqu'à la fin de l'année. Donc pour moi, là, 99% de mon chiffre d'affaires s'est envolé.
Today, tour guide Chloé is considering looking for a job in the tech sector. half of France's tour guides say they may ultimately have to find another job.
And we're wrapping up the show with a documentary that takes multiple perspectives from Wuhan to build up a picture of how the coronavirus crisis affected people there and how the Chinese authorities dealt with it. Ai Weiwei directed the film remotely, commissioning footage from inside hospitals, private homes and quarantine zones. And the result is a typically hard-hitting piece from the artist and activist. We'll leave you with a clip. Do remember to check out our website. You can get more arts and culture with us on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.